Imagine it's April 30th, 2026. You take your hyper-efficient, modern car to the mechanic, and instead of the ultra-refined synthetic it needs, they start pouring in thick, sludged oil that belongs in an old pickup truck. That scenario is exactly what Toyota North America warned its dealers about in a leaked internal memo. They told their mechanics to prepare for a critical shortage of engine oil by intentionally putting the wrong grade of lubricant into customer cars. The directive was specific. For vehicles requiring ultralight 0W8 oil, mechanics were instructed to temporarily use the heavier 0W16 grade for a portion of their oil changes. Automakers spend billions engineering engines with microscopic tolerances. This memo shows a global manufacturer instructing mechanics to ignore those exact tolerances just to get cars out of the garage. Toyota's directive reflects a sudden, market-wide collapse in lubricant availability. They are reacting to a supply chain that is effectively dismantling in real time. Industry experts who have tracked these markets for decades are witnessing price gouging and panic that defies historical norms. This chart shows the scale of the crisis. Historically, a manufacturer might raise the wholesale price to a distributor by 70 or 80 cents a gallon. Right now, those markups are spiking to $5 per gallon at an absolute minimum. Distributors are caught in a vice grip because suppliers have no product left to sell. An invisible disruption is dismantling the global supply of motor oil. Understanding the crisis requires looking past the labels and into the physical chemistry of the liquid. The composition of a standard bottle of motor oil reveals a hidden vulnerability. Most drivers assume they're paying for high-tech chemical additives, substances that clean the engine, help prevent internal rust, or boost overall performance. This diagram shows the volume breakdown. Additives are just a tiny sliver. Up to 98% is a foundational carrier liquid called base oil. Modern engines need highly refined Group 3 base oil. Group 2 is too thick for modern microscopic gaps, causing permanent damage. The math is unyielding. If you cut off the supply of Group 3 base oil, production of modern motor oil ceases to exist. The vast majority of these high-grade base oils are refined and exported from the Persian Gulf. In late February, the President of the United States initiated a military conflict with Iran, fracturing the geopolitical landscape of the region. This offensive was coordinated with the Israeli Prime Minister, forming a military alliance that sent immediate shockwaves across the Middle East. In response, Iran triggered its most potent economic weapon. They blockaded the Strait of Hormuz, shutting down the most important maritime choke point on Earth. For nearly 3 months, the ships carrying the world's chemical base oil exports have been sitting dead in the water, trapped behind a naval wall. The blockade of this waterway severed the essential chemical artery that the automotive industry depends on. As the stalemate continues, global reserves of base oil are bleeding out. Refineries and distributors are now scraping the bottom of their storage tanks. Because base oil makes up almost the entire volume of every bottle, its scarcity dictates the cost. Vehicle maintenance is becoming prohibitively expensive simply because the liquid itself is vanishing. This market lockup functions like falling dominoes with no easy exit. As long as the strait remains closed, the worldwide shortage will continue to compound. This context redefines the mystery of the Toyota memo. The instruction to use heavier, incorrect oil grades is a desperate, temporary survival tactic, an attempt to keep society moving while a core chemical ingredient remains trapped in the Gulf. High-tech engineering is remarkably fragile. The smooth operation of your car's engine depends entirely on the geopolitical stability of a waterway thousands of miles away. If you drive a modern vehicle, your engine likely relies on highly specific, low-viscosity motor oils, grades like 0W16, 0W8, or 0W20. But recently, mechanics and drivers are finding that these specialized synthetic oils have practically vanished from the shelves. The root of this scarcity traces back to the morning of February 28, 2026. A hypothetical military conflict erupted when the United States and Israel launched a surprise offensive against Iran, targeting key leadership, including Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. This chart tracks the immediate panic in the global energy markets. Brent crude prices spiked violently, jumping from $72.50 a barrel right before the conflict to nearly $105 practically overnight. The squeeze at the consumer level was immediate. Major suppliers like Chevron and Motiva began heavily rationing whatever premium base oils they had left, restricting their customers to the absolute minimum quantities allowed by contract. The International Lubricant Standardization and Approval Committee, or ILMA, issued a stark warning. At current consumption rates, the United States will entirely deplete its reserves of these premium base oils by June. Oil prices fluctuate constantly, but a general spike in the cost of crude rarely causes a highly specialized automotive product to completely disappear. To understand why this specific oil vanished, we have to look at exactly how the war dismantled the supply chain. In retaliation for the initial strikes, Iran shut down the Strait of Hormuz. That instantly trapped roughly 20 million barrels of oil and derivatives every single day, cutting off about 20% of the entire global oil supply. Simultaneously, Iran launched targeted strikes against major regional energy facilities. They hit Pearl GTL in Qatar, the largest gas-to-liquids plant in the world, along with major ADNOX facilities in the UAE and Babco in Bahrain. This diagram shows exactly why those specific targets matter to American drivers. Before the conflict, those three specific Middle Eastern companies supplied 44% of all the premium Group 3 base oils imported by the United States. The combination of soaring demand for fuel, plant operators rapidly pivoted their equipment to churn out diesel instead of motor oil. This created an incredibly rare market anomaly. Right now, a barrel of Group 2 base oil literally sells for less than a barrel of diesel fuel. From a financial perspective, producing motor oil has become toxic for these companies. The secondary oil shortage is driven by ruthless economic triage, where the market sacrifices consumer car maintenance to keep high-margin industrial diesel flowing. There is one remaining heavyweight in the global oil refining industry that sits completely outside the Middle Eastern war zone: South Korea. South Korea is an absolute titan in this sector, controlling between 35 and 38% of the entire global manufacturing capacity for Group 3 base oils. But looking at this trade map reveals a fatal vulnerability. To power those massive industrial complexes, South Korea imports 61% of its raw crude oil directly through the Strait of Hormuz. When the strait was severed, it completely choked off the essential raw materials required to keep those South Korean plants running. A country's massive manufacturing capacity is completely useless if the single geographic choke point providing its raw materials is severed. Without a steady supply of low-viscosity Group 3 synthetic oils, modern high-efficiency car engines run incredibly hot and face severe friction, drastically increasing the risk of mechanical breakdown. Car owners are now backed into a corner. They either pay deeply gouged prices for whatever premium oil is left, use inferior oils that degrade their engines, or stretch out the time between oil changes far beyond the manufacturer's safety recommendations. These forced compromises are a ticking time bomb. Operating high-precision engines with inadequate lubrication will inevitably lead to a wave of catastrophic engine failures across the consumer market. Global trade's hyper-optimized efficiency masks a deep structural fragility, turning a distant maritime choke point closure into a systemic collapse of specialized consumer goods. I'm curious how this is playing out locally for you. If you own a car, have you noticed missing motor oil brands, sudden price hikes, or massive delays trying to book a maintenance appointment? Let me know in the comments below.